So tell me what the main findings were on transport in the IPCC.
Well, transport's a hard one because we know that it's going to grow hugely in terms of billions of passenger kilometres per year for the rest of this century. More and more people want to travel, but we also know freight is going to increase as well. So how do we decouple that growth from the climate change emissions that result from planes and boats and cars? It's not just road vehicles that we're talking about. And so there are the technologies around. There's four ways of doing it. You can reduce activity, you can use teleconference calls and not go to meetings, those sort of things. There is a move towards peak cars in many cities because younger people are starting to communicate more through the IT, the social networking, and they don't need to drive so much. So that's reducing the activity. We can improve the efficiency of the vehicles, whether it's an aeroplane or whatever, to use less fuel. We can change the fuels to electric vehicles, electric buses, electric two-wheelers as well as cars, as long as the electricity comes from renewable energy, low carbon electricity. We can use biofuels as long as they're good biofuels, because there's good biofuels and there's bad biofuels, so that's changing the fuels. But then there's behavioural issues as well. So we can change people's choice of how they're going to move from A to B in terms of going on the bus or the bicycle or the train or the car, and modal choice is a key part of that. And that relates to infrastructure. Because if you haven't built the infrastructure to encourage the cyclists, we were in South Pacific just recently for IPCC outreach, and people are walking everywhere, but there's no footpaths. It's hugely dangerous. The cars are running alongside. So it's that infrastructure. If you build new roads now, it encourages cars. If you build new footpaths and cycleways, it encourages alternatives. And the other point, Sophie, as well, is that there's different solutions for different countries and different regions. So what might be a solution for New York City is totally different to a small town of Eldoret in Kenya, for example. And so within the transport chapter, we had to try and cover all of those situations.
Do you think the biggest challenge is getting the infrastructure and the technology ready, or is it to change people's behaviour?
Technologies are improving all the time. The little Peugeot car that my wife drives, I ride a bicycle, is so fuel efficient now that it's far, far better. And that's the same for many vehicles, trucks and planes as well. So the technology is improving and will continue to improve. Changing people's behaviour is the big issue. Why do I ride a bicycle? Because I'm proud not to use a car. But if I go to China, they cannot understand why I would choose to ride a bicycle when they, for their status, are wanting to drive the biggest cars available, even if they sit in the traffic jam for hours on end. So that behavioural change is the hardest part to do.
In China, obviously, they've got massive air pollution problems as well as climate change. Do you think focusing on the kind of co-benefits of switching to electric cars can encourage the uptake of that kind of technology?
Absolutely, and that's key right the way through the mitigation report, especially in the transport chapter, because there's co-benefits with everything you do for climate change mitigation. And on many occasions, the climate change mitigation is the co-benefit for improving people's health in cities. Black carbon coming from diesel vehicles, for example, reduce that, you improve the respiration and reduce the deaths, and from biomass cooking as well. So you get those health benefits, but at the same time the environment gains as well. So it has to be pushing the co-benefits wherever possible.
And what do you think it'll take to get electric cars to be really mainstream?
Oh, well, there's electric cars and there's electric cars. Mitsubishi have just put out a new electric plug-in hybrid. We've been driving a Toyota plug-in hybrid for a while at Massey University, where I come from in New Zealand, and they're not 100% electric, but they give you the range. I've used a two-wheel electric pedal assist bicycle, and I got 70 kilometres range out of that. I pedalled all the time, so I got my exercise as well. And so the technologies are getting better, the batteries are getting better, but so are the whole sort of concepts involved. The key though, and we've got to have a future vision for this, IT and transport is going to change things immensely. The future iPhone that the world might have in 10 years' time will be totally different to today. But the other key technology which is moving steadily at this stage is induction charging, where you don't have to plug an electric vehicle in. You can park it over a stationary pad and it recharges. So that technology is being used already. Mazda City, for example, has got a little fleet of electric vehicles using that. But the next stage for that is where you have this induction charging as the vehicle is running down the highway. So the electric vehicle on the main highway is getting powered and recharged as it's travelling, and then when it gets off the main highway to go down into the suburbs or wherever, it's fully charged. So that technology is already being demonstrated and could happen within a decade or so.